Hey guys, Master Isla here for another edition of our training tip video series. This is the 4th episode, so if you didn't catch the first 3, make sure you go back and watch those. But let's jump into today's episode. Today we're going to be talking about our Ki-Ahp, why we do it, how we do it, and how this important aspect of our training is so much more than a yell. When you were a white belt, one of the first things you probably learned to do when you threw out a technique was to yell, Ki-Ahp! But we don't always talk about what that is or why we do it. So what is a Ki-Ahp? Ki actually refers to your spirit or energy. So when we say Ki-Ahp, it literally means spirit yell. And it's kind of funny if you think about it, because when you're throwing a punch and you say Ki-Ahp, you're actually yelling spirit yell. But if you watch a lot of senior students, you'll notice that they don't actually say the word Ki-Ahp when they yell. And that's because a Ki-Ahp is supposed to be so much more than just a yell. It's an amplification of your spirit and your energy coming from the deepest part of you. A lot of beginners just make the mistake of yelling as loud as they can from the back of their throat, but remember I said it's supposed to come from somewhere deeper. Your Ki-Ahp should be this guttural yell that comes from your tunjin, or that's Korean for your abdomen, deep down inside you. But maybe when you yell or Ki-Ahp, you might feel kind of dumb or silly. So what's the point? Why do we do this? One thing that happens when we yell is it gets our body really pumped up. It gets our adrenaline rushing and helps us to believe that we can do this. Even if you're feeling kind of nervous and afraid, you can kind of trick your body into getting excited by letting out this loud, powerful yell. And besides boosting our confidence, another thing a loud Ki-Ahp does is it intimidates our opponent. It lets them know, hey, I'm not afraid, I mean business, and you shouldn't try anything with me. Remember, your opponent doesn't have to know if you're really afraid on the inside. It's about boosting your confidence and telling them that you mean business. It's kind of like when soldiers run into battle and they're letting out a war cry. It's that kind of intimidation technique. But there are also some practical reasons that we should Ki-Ahp. You might have noticed that when the senior students do their forms, they let out a powerful breath on each technique. The reason you want to breathe out when you execute a technique is to empty your lungs of air. This really helps you tighten up your core, which in turn makes your punches and kicks more powerful. Remember how I said that your Ki-Ahp should come from your tunjin, your abdomen? Well, it's the same principle. By breathing, you tighten up your core. By Ki-Ahping, you do the same thing. In fact, a Ki-Ahp is really just a loud, intimidating, confidence-boosting breath. Let's stop talking about Ki-Ahps for a second, and let's keep talking about breaths, because that's another important thing that we don't always teach that well, that we want to make sure our students are doing when they execute techniques. Not only does breathing out tighten your core, but it empties your lungs, and that's important for 2 reasons. First, when you throw a punch or a kick, that's oftentimes the point in time when you're most open and an opponent could attack you. Have you ever got punched in the chest really hard? It makes you go, and that's really, really hard to recover from when you get the wind knocked out of you. But if your lungs are already emptied of air, then when you get hit, it's not going to cause as much damage. You're not going to get that gut-wrenching feeling of getting the wind knocked out of you. The second reason we want to make sure that we breathe out when we do a technique is that when you empty your lungs of air, it reminds your body that you also have to breathe in. A lot of times when we're doing a really strenuous activity like punching, kicking, or exercising, we forget to breathe in because we're focusing so much on what we're doing. But our muscles need that oxygen in order to work. So when you breathe out, it reminds you that you also have to breathe in and give those muscles the oxygen that they need to make your techniques effective. In fact, if you watch a lot of advanced students do their forms, before they breathe out, usually when they pull back their techniques, there's also a sharp inhale. This is because you have to do both breathing out and breathing in order to make your techniques effective. So remember, that Ki-Ahp is just a really exaggerated breath, and both breathing and Ki-Ahping are important to make our techniques the most effective they can be. Not just when we do forms, but when we do sparring. Ki-Ahping can be a great tool to use to intimidate your opponent and make your techniques more effective. Next time you're practicing your techniques, focus on your breathing and don't forget to let out a nice loud Ki-Ahp. Tangsu.